On a quiet spring morning in Glasgow, police made a chilling discovery. A pregnant teacher found dead in her own home, and a fiancé missing. What happened to Marelle Sturrock would leave the community devastated and raise far more questions than it answered. I'm Harley, this is All I'm Saying Is. Here we do true crime of cases that you've never heard before. But before we do, we need to do my disclaimer. This is a true crime case, therefore it involves real people. Then real people have real families and real friends. So although I do want you to comment and I do want you to share, please do so with sensitivity. Marelle Sturrock was a beloved teacher. She was just 35 years old and weeks away from becoming a mother. But her life and her baby's life ended in a way that nobody could have predicted. To understand how things reached this point, we have to go back to Marelle's early life and to the Scottish Islands. Marelle Sturrock was born and raised in Wick, a small coastal town in northern Scotland, Caithness. In 2005, aged just 17, Marelle moved to Glasgow to pursue a career in the performing arts. According to those that knew her, she was full of ambition, talent and kindness. She studied musical theatre at the University of the West of Scotland as part of the following her passion for drama and music. Naturally, Marelle became part of a few art societies and local theatre companies, and it was through these people that she met during these stage performances that she developed a love for teaching and decided to do that as a full-time job, as a profession. First studying her PDG at Dundee University before getting a job at Sandwich Primary School in Glasgow. I also read that it was through these various local theatre companies that she met David Yates, who shared her passion for the arts, and she met him in about 2011. It's not heavily reported, but I also read that Marelle and David got engaged in 2015. On to 2016-2017, Marelle began a teaching career at Sandwich Primary School in Glasgow, initially as a probationary teacher. Marelle didn't move on from Sandwich Primary School. Over the next 6 years, she taught multiple year groups and became a beloved member of the school staff. Colleagues would go on to praise her as lovely, kind, diligent and considerate, noting that she used her artistic talents to lead school choirs and drama activities. As I said, her fiancé David Yates was also known to have been involved in local theatre from school and university. He was a budding actor himself. He also performed in amateur musical productions. For example, he once played Rapunzel's prince in Glasgow's stage production. One of the last productions he starred in was Dr. Morrison film in 2013. Now, if you think back to 2020, there was the vast majority of people remaining at home for the vast majority of the time. Now, if you remember back to that time, there were lots of people doing all sorts to entertain themselves and to keep others entertained online and to bring people together. Well, Marelle and David were one of them couples, setting out to bring people together online. Together, they launched an online Facebook group to bring people together through music. The pair would stream musical performances from home, encouraging others to join in. And the group did fairly well. It attracted about 1,600 members in a fairly short time, which for Facebook, well, for any platform, is incredibly hard to do. David was also a vocalist in Glasgow heavy metal band Nocturne Wolf. And during these hard times, he told Razor Edge's website, "We are all missing gigging. I think we're heading in the right direction, if people are sensible. It has not been too bad for me. I've been furloughed from work, so it's been frustrating not seeing folk, and we had a few gigs lined up that have been cancelled and rescheduled, which was gutting." But it was later that year, September 2020, that he announced he was leaving the band. "I'm afraid to say this will be my last post as the singer of Nocturne Wolf. I found that my heart just wasn't in the band. I want a family more than I want to be in the band. I made the difficult decision to step down as the singer. It will be sad news for some people, maybe other people will be elated. My heart just wasn't really in the band, and at that level where it needed to be. I love music, I love performing. I do various different things outside the band. I wanted a puppy more than I wanted to be in the band. I wanted a family, more than I wanted to be in the band. I still want to do all those musical things. The other guys are so committed to this project, and for me to come with anything less than 100% is not fair on them. Now, a major thing about David is he is a massive fan of J.R.R. Tolkien's works. J.R.R. Tolkien wrote The Lord of the Rings and such things, like The Hobbit and all that sort of stuff. David was so much of a fan that they named their dog Sam after Samwise from the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit and all that stuff. He also nicknamed Marelle Sturrock, another character from the J.R.R. Tolkien's books. He often referred to himself as a hobbit on Facebook and read The Lord of the Rings on a podcast, complete with accents and sound effects, in exchange for listeners to donate to charity. Then in late 2022, Marelle became pregnant with their first baby. So by early 2023, they're living in Jura Street in Craigton area of Glasgow. We've got this new baby on the way. Things are really going well for them. At this point, they're sharing their home with their dog Sam, who is a red fox Labrador, or fox red Labrador, whatever. For all intents and purposes, to anyone on the outside of this relationship, family and friends and colleagues, Marelle and David were living this really happy life, and they were loving and devoted to each other. Marelle's parents later said the two doted on each other. There were no public signs of domestic conflict or police involvement at any time in their relationship up until this point. By April 2023, Marelle was 35 and David was 36. But most wonderfully, Marelle was 29 weeks pregnant, with a baby being due in early summer. Eager for their next big steps in life, they'd already chosen the baby boy's name. The baby was Marelle Sturrock. However, it was that month that the unthinkable happened. The evening of Sunday, the 23rd of April, 2023, marks the last time that David Yates had been seen alive. David was spotted at Mugdrock Country Park, a large woodland and park area with about 9 miles away from their flat. But he was last spotted shortly after 8 p.m. But of course, at this point, he wasn't missing, because you don't go missing until someone contacts you or finds you, and then all of a sudden, you're now missing. And with that logic in mind, neither of them was missing for another 2 days. It was on the morning of Tuesday, the 25th of April, 2023, because it was then that Marelle didn't show up for work at Sandwood Primary School. And of course, it was totally unlike Marelle to be missing from work without notice. So it immediately raised concerns among her colleagues. And I did read a neighbour said that some of her colleagues actually went to her house to try and find her. And I mean, you hear quite often that there's immediate concern following the actions that come hours later or days later. But in this case, Marelle's colleagues wasted no time. It was about 20 to 9 in the morning. After a concern for a person call was made to the police, the officers arrived at Jura Street to check the flat as a welfare check. Once there, police discovered Marelle's body inside, and she was pronounced dead at the scene. Marelle had suffered severe head injuries. Subsequent post-mortem findings would reveal that she was bludgeoned to death with a claw hammer inside her own home. And let's not forget, Marelle was bearing a child. Of course, the violent attack also caused the death of her unborn baby boy. As obvious as it sounds, the police made an immediate determination that Marelle's death was suspicious and likely a homicide. So shortly after her body had been discovered, at midday, Scotland police launched a murder investigation into Marelle's death. Obviously, David, her fiancé, who's not at the scene, there's no signs of forced entry or any other signs of third-party involvement. So they tried to contact David and they can't find him, they can't contact him. So that puts David really strongly as a potential prime suspect. Almost immediately though, that changed into a situation where he was now the prime suspect. Their focus was very quickly to go and find David. Find where David Yates is now. And again, no time was wasted. The police were straight onto this. It was the same day that the police found his car, a white Seat SUV, which had been abandoned in the parking area of Mugdock Country Park. I mean, come on, this isn't the hardest case for the police to follow so far, is it? It's almost left a trail of breadcrumbs. So of course the next thing you do is go and search for Country Park. And happily this isn't a case where I say that's not what the police did. They did. En masse too. They performed an extensive search. They were treating David Yates as a wanted fugitive, potentially hiding in that park's vicinity. Authorities reassured the public that they did not believe any risk to the wider public, indicating that they thought it was an isolated incident of DV. Over the next 2 days, there was a major police operation in Mugdock Country Park. This park includes dense woodland, trails and a reservoir. There was an extensive search by ground teams, dog units, police divers. They even had a horse unit out scouring as well. Large areas of the park and Mugdock Reservoir were cordoned off by police while the search was ongoing. Officers used helicopters and underwater search teams, braving difficult terrain and murky waters. And the police were being quite transparent with the public. Detective Superintendent Nicola Kilbane publicly stated that David is wanted in connection with Marelle's death. And at that time, we have no information to suggest anyone else has been involved. And of course, while these search teams are prowling through the country park, other teams were trying to gather information elsewhere. And the best that they could find was the last confirmed sighting of David was on that Sunday night, 8 p.m. Paired with finding his car at that country park suggested that he never left the country park. By the next day, Wednesday the 26th of April, 2023, Marelle's death was now very public knowledge, sending a shockwave through the school community and her entire hometown. As the search in the park intensified, back at her home, tributes began to pour in from her colleagues, friends and members of the public, and were starting to leave flowers and other tributes outside her house. Sandwood Primary School head teacher sent a letter to parents informing them of the sudden death of Miss Sturrock, who is a beloved member of our teaching staff. Grief counsellors and educational therapists were brought into the school to support students and staff. One parent recounted how she treated the kids like her own, made them have confidence within themselves, emphasising what a caring teacher Marelle Sturrock was. Longtime friends also started to speak out as well. For instance, a family friend told the media, "She really was incredibly special. The very last person anyone could ever want to come to harm." Another day on, Thursday the 27th of April 2023, marked the third day of the search at Mugdock Country Park. And it was that afternoon that the police made a grim discovery. At 1:45 in the afternoon, after 60 hours worth of searching the 600-acre beauty spot that is Mugdock, police divers found a body in the reservoir. The body was retrieved, and while formal identification was still pending, the authorities did publicly announce that they believe it to be that of David Yates, 36. This discovery had effectively ended the manhunt that evening. Detective Superintendent Nicola Kilbane stated that the investigation was ongoing, but reiterated that nothing has been established so far to suggest anyone else was involved in Marelle's death. At that point, their working conclusion was that David likely took his own life in the reservoir after murdering Marelle. While awaiting for David to be formally identified and forensic work was still being continued, the police maintained a presence at both crime scenes, Jura Street and Mugdock Park. Another day on, Friday the 28th of April 2023, Police Scotland formally confirmed that the body found at Mugdock Reservoir was David Yates, and that his death was not being treated as suspicious. With the prime suspect deceased, police announced that there is nothing to suggest anyone else was involved, and that they were not seeking any other suspects. Detectives described the case as a likely murder suicide. They believe that David fatally attacked Marelle and the unborn child and then fled and ended himself in the park. A park where on many occasions David and Marelle would take the dog. Now, because of the circumstances, a homicide followed by a suspicious death, the Crown Office instructed Scotland's independent police watchdog to review the case. The Police Investigations and Review Commissioner, the PIRC, inquiry apparently examined the police handling of any prior incidents and responses to this case or reports to this case to ensure procedures were followed correctly. And apparently such an investigation is quite a routine thing when a death occurs in the context of this. So basically what they want to say, because I think it's quite a good thing, what they're basically saying here is, look, someone's been murdered and then there's been what looks like a sewer. And they're basically just making sure that police haven't just gone, yeah, that were murder sewer. They want to definitively say, yeah, that's exactly what happened, and make sure no one's just writing anything off and pinning it on the dead guy. So that's what occurred. No exact time for Marelle's death was ever given from police, just saying that by all signs she was dead by the end of the weekend. But we're not done yet because there is a lot of chilling information that came out after. I think the most chilling revelation was the fact that David had for a while called Marelle Luvian, because Luvian is a female elf mentioned in The Lord of the Rings, and her character was involved in a double death with her partner. So a lot of people are pointing this out as a parallel between the Tolkien's books and what David's done. And to say he's a big fan of Tolkien, there is quite a parallel, because Luthien and Beren, who is Luthien's human lover, appear on the grave of Tolkien and his wife Edith. In a letter to his son in 1972, Tolkien requested the inscription and said, "She was, and she knew she was, my Luthien." Never called Edith Luthien, but she was the source of the story. Another chilling piece of information, which is by far a coincidence, probably, is David's former band. Nocturne Wolf had a song entitled Hammer of Justice, which was released just months before the murder, well after David had left the band. One of Marelle's friends posted a screenshot onto Facebook of the band announcing the release of Justice of Hammer. She wrote, "There's a sickening irony to the name of this single is all band released in 2022 and the circumstances of Marelle's passing. The song, which was released in November 2022, so like halfway between him leaving the band in 2020 and the murder in 2023. But it contains the lyrics, "Hammer of justice ends all." Other lines from the song include, "I raise up my hammer and I smash his skull, and the lives I will take by the will of my hand." But a lot of people that knew David didn't hide that they were struggling to reconcile his actions with the man they thought they knew. David Yates was known as a soft, gentle, and kind, leaving those who knew him unable to fathom how he could have possibly done something so cruel and brutal. Although other friends of David also claimed he'd struggled with mental health in the past. One said, David had a bit of a breakdown before his dad had died last year. He was in a band for a few years and wanted to make a go of that. And he was still doing this theatre shows and things. Nobody can get their heads around what has happened here. Although a lot of people online were saying it's amazing how well hidden DV can be, I personally want to hold back from assuming that the relationship had a element of DV. Obviously, I don't know either of them, but from what I've read, it just doesn't seem to fit. Personally, I think it's more of a mental health issue, the build-up of pressure because this baby's coming, the worry of the future, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, in the US, not so much the UK, but in the US, the biggest cause of death of pregnant women is murder. In the UK, I think it's suicide, but you know what I'm getting at. However, I'm certainly not sticking up for David, and I'm certainly not saying this wasn't planned out. I'm not saying that he'd get a diminished responsibility had he still been alive. One source told the papers it's thought to have been pre-planned because David brought the dog to his mom's house the night before and told her he had plans the next day. And like I said, assuming that's true, there's no argument for psychosis or anything like that. It's definitely premeditated. And by the way, this isn't me just saying that it's any better or worse, any of these circumstances. Regardless of how that day came to pass, it shouldn't have happened. But I do think it's important why it happened. How can we learn to protect ourselves and our women and our families if we don't understand it? How can we fix something we don't understand? I've said it before in murder-suicide cases, it really pisses me off about murder-suicide because it leaves so many unanswered questions for the families and for the friends. Not only does the murder hurt everybody, not only does the suicide hurt everyone, but then there's all these questions that are left unanswered, and there's just never going to be any justice. There's never going to be any closure. All the families have been left with a huge hole, a huge painful hole, with never any answers or closure. As I said at the beginning of this video, what happened to Marelle Sturrock would leave the community devastated and raise far more questions than answers. 1 year after the tragedy, Marelle's older sister Sarah undertook a meaningful tribute in her memory. At 38-year-old, she completed a 500-mile walking challenge, which was the North Coast Virtual 500 Challenge, and she did that over 34 days accompanied by her dog and Marelle's dog, Sam. Throughout this fundraiser, Sarah raised over £4,000 for Labrador Retriever Rescue Scotland, a charity that was apparently close to Marelle's heart. As for where we are now, in mid-2025, the official investigation into the case is closed. There's no more criminal prosecution since the perpetrator is deceased. The PIRC inquiry into the police handling of the incident was launched in 2023, but no public response has yet been released of its findings. I have, however, come across a Freedom of Information request for information, but the police won't give up that information, which always annoys me. In rejecting this request, they say all the information requested is held for the purpose of an investigation. Information about investigations will only ever be disclosed by Police Scotland, where there are overwhelming public interest considerations favouring disclosure. So I partially get that, because what they're saying is, look, it's got nothing to do with you. It's a personal matter. There's no broader information or help for the wider public, so we're not giving it you. But it is slightly frustrating that, because it's not so much the case that we're interested in, it's the police conduct inquiry. So, yeah, I always think it comes across a little bit more dodgy when they don't tell you what the inquiry's found. But it's not the first time, and it certainly won't be the last. So let's move on to the family statements. The head of Sandwood Primary School said Marelle has been a much loved member of that school community since her probationary year more than 6 years ago, and has taught many year groups throughout her time at the school. We will all miss her so much. She was a lovely, kind, diligent and considerate person who loved and made time for everyone. Marelle used her artistic talents across the school and was our music champion, who has been a key player in the success of our school choirs, with one of her classes going to see her on stage at the King's Theatre in one of her many acting roles outside the school. We are a school community in mourning and are devastated by the tragic news of her death, and pass on our deepest condolences to her family and friends as we all come to terms with our loss. A few acting societies and associations made statements. One I've picked is from Wix, where she attended as a teenager, and they said Marelle was a very talented young lady, both with her singing and her acting. Some people have a light that shines from within. Marelle's talent shone through that aura, and she followed her dream by doing drama and music studies at university. It is tragic that her young life has ended too soon, but we at Wick Players will always love and remember her as our family. Her parents said, we are devastated following the deaths of our daughter Marelle and soon-to-be grandson Jaden Sturrock. Marelle was the happiest person you could ever meet and was always looking to help others the best she could. Marelle and her partner doted on each other, and this incident has come as a total shock to all who knew her. We would like to thank family and friends for all their support in the last few days, and also the staff at Sandwood Primary School, Police Scotland and all emergency services who have been involved in what has been a very difficult time. Our family would like everyone, including the press, to respect our privacy at this time. That's all I've got for you. And you know, as I've just said, the most frustrating thing about covering a murder suicide is there's no closure. And you might have got to the end of this case and thought, appointing that documentary. But I think it is important. I think it's important that we discuss it. Why should Marelle's life be talked about any less? Why should we not talk about David just because this case ended this way? It is absolutely an heartbreaking case to see such two such talented people that have now just gone too soon, free potentially. That little baby never got to have a chance at life, and we'll never know why. And like I said, that's the worst thing about these types of cases. I can't say that this weren't a DV case because we don't know, but there's two things to look out for you. One, DV could be happening without you knowing. So always be careful to just check how people are. If people have been off, that could be why. And maybe it weren't DV. Maybe David Yates was just scared and stressed and depressed. And if that's the case, again, all we can do is watch out for these people and be there and hope and protect these people. I find it really hard to tarnish David's name in this case because I've managed to find so little about him, and everyone says how great he were. And if you look at the pictures, they were clearly in love. It's just hard, and I don't know. I just felt that this case had to be shared, so I've shared it. I am now going to try and get a video out every other week or every week, so please do check the community, and we are going to find a good schedule to post in. Until next time, guys, all I'm saying is I love you. Take care of yourself, take care of those around you, and I'll see you real soon. Bye.
Yeah.